Welcome back to the Live Impact Studio. It is 2:35 on your clock, and we are following another investigation out of Gaston County. This is a homicide investigation that began last week, but Nate Morabito has been investigating this. Nate, you're here. 2 women charged with abuse already, but you've already been investigating one of these women for a lot longer. So what do we know?
Yeah, okay, let's start with the victim in this case, Aaliyah Fortner, 23 years old. She was, according to her family, placed in a home in Dallas, North Carolina in January of this year using state resources and alongside other people with disabilities. We know that a woman named Marlo Wallace lived in that home. That's a caregiver for people with disabilities, and she has long taken care of people who are nonverbal, for example. Marlo Wallace is now charged with abusing Fortner in the weeks leading up to her death and concealing her death. Meanwhile, there's another woman, Vera Williams, also charged with abuse. In the meantime, the district attorney tells me they're waiting for the autopsy from Aaliyah Fortner to figure out what and if additional charges may come of this. Marlo Wallace is a woman who I've been looking into for some time now. So in February of last year, 2024, I received a call about a hearing that involved this woman. And let me kind of set the stage for you. There was another dependent adult living in her home who she was taking care of. In fact, she was the guardian of. And he was also nonverbal. And family of that man grew concerned about his safety, as did multiple people who lived or worked in that home. This is the same home Aaliyah Fortner was found dead in. So there's a hearing that goes on for more than 3 hours. This is now in November 2023. A hearing in court where a judge ultimately says, I have concerns about this man's safety. I'm going to revoke your guardianship of this man. And, the DSS in Gaston County would then take temporary custody of him. In the meantime, several months pass, and I become aware of it. And I'm told this man's still in the home. And so I ask questions to Gastonia police, who, number one, tell me they had an active criminal investigation into Marlo Wallace for abuse and neglect allegations. Again, February 2024. I asked the state, the Department of Health and Human Services. They really can't talk specifics about any case at the time. So eventually this man moves out of the home. To my knowledge, nothing ever additional happened after we asked our questions. But again, earlier this year, Aaliyah Fortner moves in. And this is really the crux of our investigation. What did the system know? Did the system protect this woman? Did the system place this woman into a situation where she could have been harmed? Were there already existing red flags? So what's interesting is during this hearing that lasted more than 3 hours, and I've listened to it now, there's multiple people who allege abuse and neglect, not only against the man that I referenced, but against a woman that lived in the home as well. Her name was Ashana, still is, she's still alive. She lived in the home for a couple of years and was taken care of by another woman in the home, but lived in Marlo Wallace's home. And her mother, Alonda Nebab, talked to me about some of the things she witnessed when she would go pick up her daughter, including one day coming up and seeing the man I referenced in the garage wearing nothing but an adult diaper on a chilly day, eating. Other concerns were that this Marlo Wallace hit that man in the head with a glass.
Wow.
And one of the witnesses in this hearing also referenced Wallace allegedly taking a belt and hitting Alonda Nebab's daughter in the head with it. So we interviewed Alonda Nebab, about a week or two ago, and here's what she told us about what she thinks about the system protecting Aaliyah Fortner.
This girl should be alive. She didn't deserve to die at the hands of anybody. She didn't deserve to be treated cruelly. As a parent, I'm also an advocate for individuals with special needs. It's no way this young lady should have lost her life. No way she should have been put into her home.
Okay. Also, during that hearing, Adult Protective Services talked about multiple visits made to that home. One in which they were able to confirm some neglect related to medication compliance that the social worker said that Marlo Wallace addressed. But every other unannounced visit by Adult Protective Services, they said, resulted in no findings, no concerns.
Interesting.
In fact, what this worker said during this hearing was, we have no immediate concerns. And I want you to hear what the hearing officer said after hearing everything, everybody's thoughts, what everybody said they saw. This is what she had to say.
I have heard a lot that is very concerning. I think that is I will leave it there. I've heard a lot of things that are concerning. Not just with the allegations, but also with the fact that the Gaston County Department of Social Services made multiple visits to this home unannounced and was still not able to substantiate anything. It's also concerning that I cannot be confident in the testimony that I heard that a full, thorough investigation was actually done. That's concerning.
That's pretty intense language for a hearing officer.
Especially knowing what we know now.
Yeah.
And so I think the big question is, were there warning signs? Were people aware of the warning signs? And then what decisions did they put into place to place Fortner in this home? By the way, I should tell you that NEBAB is the one that provided that hearing video to us. It was a WebEx recording. She was one of the people who testified in that hearing. So we asked these different social services agencies, you know, what can you tell us about this? How did you feel safe? She was in the custody of Stanley County DSS when she was placed in this home in Dallas. How did you feel like that was safe to place her? And the agency said, we can't talk specifics, but did point out that unlike in juvenile cases, there is no database or clearinghouse, let's say, of all allegations. There's not one spot you can check and say, hey, this person was accused before, or Adult Protective Services went to their house multiple times, or police were investigating this woman. You know, in the police department's case, they never pursued criminal charges.
Yeah.
Gastonia police wouldn't tell me why. They had people sworn testimony saying they witnessed abuse. It never resulted in criminal charges. So I think at the least we've uncovered a gap in the system.
Sure.
There should be better communication between these different agencies. And in North Carolina, the State Department of Health doesn't have real oversight over these individual counties that are making these placement decisions. Every county has the authority to make their own decisions, what they deem best for dependent adults, people who need care more than a family can give, many of whom will live in other people's homes. And so, were these agencies talking together? Were there any concerns that were raised? I think that is going to be a continued conversation. And I should point out, in the case of Aaliyah Fortner, both Marlo Wallace and Vera Williams appeared in Gaston County Court Monday. And District Attorney Travis Page, during that hearing, said investigators were able to restore deleted video from security cameras inside the home that showed what he called the worst and degrading abuse.
Wow.
The worst he's ever seen as district attorney. And the court records show things like tasing of this woman, stomping on her, hitting her with objects. Again, just allegations, but they do align with what other people told a hearing officer 2 years ago.
I think what's so interesting about kind of that gap that you uncovered is we've kind of seen a pattern in some of your reporting now of people with disabilities or people who need care. It's hard to track, and there's often gaps in the system where things get overlooked. And so that particular piece of it is really interesting to me, that there's no database where you can find that information about someone that's putting that's working with people in very vulnerable positions.
I mean, I'm already starting to think about when the General Assembly comes back into session next year, that might be something that they need to discuss.
Yeah.
Especially because we have a young person who has died here. And there should be some kind of communication. I think most people would agree. What also makes these kind of cases very difficult is that you have families who are overwhelmed
Yeah.
and cannot take care of their loved ones. And they have to make the very difficult decision oftentimes to turn over the care to other people. And in Fortner's case, her stepmom told us when they would call the home, the woman of the home would say, she has bad days, you really probably shouldn't come visit. And so you're limiting interaction with these people. The less you're in a home, the less you can see. Same goes for like a nursing home or assisted living facility. If you're not visiting, you're not seeing really what's going on there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what makes all of this difficult. Plus you had people coming in and out of the home. Some of them did report some concerns. Did they always report them? I mean, one woman said that she witnessed Marlo Wallace kick that man down the stairs.
And if that's what they're doing in front of people, potentially, if that's an allegation that's in front of people, you can't even imagine what might be going on
Yes.
alone in the
Yes,
home.
and I think like when we talk about vulnerable populations, to me that is maybe my biggest passion in my reporting.
Yeah.
It's focusing on people who are vulnerable, who are kind of on the fringes of our society, who don't have a voice, and who often are relying on others to protect them, including the government. And so I think we all need to be speaking up for those people.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to do it now because we have a person who has died, right? And we know there's a homicide investigation. You kind of act in good faith and hope that people are acting in good faith to do what's best for these people and assume they're making the best decisions in the moment. But you only can make the best decision based on the information that you have available.
And when we're working cross-departmentally like this, it often spreads the responsibility to the point of who is in charge of creating that database or who is in charge of filling those gaps. And that's a pattern that we see in multiple government agencies of when there's multiple agencies at play that are separate or multiple levels, it's kind of hard to bridge that gap.
Yep.
And find who's responsible for doing
I mean,
it.
Gaston County DSS tells me, well, we weren't in charge of placing that woman. We would not necessarily have been informed that they were
Sure.
placing. I mean, so it's a lot of,
Who's in charge of what?
I mean, there's a lot of different agencies involved, very limited communication from what I can tell. I will tell you the Department of Health and Human Services, the state agency, told me they're now moving forward with case reviews
Okay.
of this case because I think they feel really terrible about what's happened here, and they said that they really emphasized that in their response to me, that they really feel bad for those that knew her, that loved her, especially considering there were red flags. I mean, there was a court officer who said, I am not comfortable with this woman being the guardian of this man any longer because I have safety concerns.
Do we have any timeline on if there will be more charges?
So we're waiting on an autopsy,
Okay.
right? And that can take a little bit of
Yeah.
time, right? I would expect that in the next couple of weeks, I would imagine that would be completed because it's a high priority case. Also interesting in this case, Gastonia police have said that Marlo Wallace was in a crash, and when police came out there, she told them, you're going to find a dead body in my home when you go to my home. And they had to wait a bit for her to be released from the hospital before they could charge her last week. Yeah.
My goodness.
There's a lot going on here. And there's some, relationship issues, too, that have gone in the past with her and a former spouse of hers. I mean, the court record is substantial.
There's a lot here to dig through.
Yes, and I will say, too, nowadays, it's much more accessible than it used to be, right? I was able to get this recording, but the order's in there. The report from the man's guardian ad litem is in there that lays out who she talked to and who raised concerns and what the detective from Gastonia was investigating in 2023. And we knew he was still investigating it in 2024. For some reason, there were no additional criminal charges. And now you wonder, well, what if they had charged her?
Maybe we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, and what police will generally tell you is if we have the evidence, we will charge someone. I'm not an officer, so I don't know really the ins and outs of all that, but I know that there were sworn witness testimonies saying they saw stuff. Was there physical evidence? Maybe that was part of it.
Is there, I know this is going to be full story at 11, is
Yes.
there anything else you want people to know before they see this?
No, I just think you need to really make sure you stay engaged with anyone who's providing care to a family member. And I think that this sometimes happens. People turn it around on the family. Well, why weren't you there? Why weren't you taking better care? And that's not what we're saying. We're saying you got to be active. You got to be asking questions. You got to be calling and checking in regularly. And they very may well have done so in this case. But the more connections you make with people, the more opportunities to make sure and understand things are going the way you want them to go. And I know that there are usually some audits that go through of cases to make sure agencies are doing the right thing. And Stanley County told me their record is quite good when it comes to that. But all it takes is one person dying. One person is now dead. A person who really didn't have a voice at all, literally, and their life mattered. And I think that's what these family members are saying now. We want to make sure future people are protected.
Well, Nate, I know we've now done a few stories over the last few months. I know this is a pattern for you to focus on these stories of people who don't have voices, and it's hard, and it's difficult to hear this, and it's hard to have those heartbreaking conversations with family who've experienced it. So we appreciate you and your reporting. This is very important, and I know that it's difficult to do, but anytime we get a chance to find those gaps, that's really what it's all about. So we thank you for doing this.
And I always say it, life or death. That's what the most important job for me is, trying to expose problems where life and death hang in the balance so that we can favor life over death, ultimately.
All right, Nate, thank you. We'll see you at
Thank
11.
guys. Yep.